who would like to thank our very special sponsors this season, Extron. Without you, our show is not possible at rAVe Pubs for the rAVe Esports Show. Thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to working with you more. If you'd like to learn more, check out extron.com/esports. I'm here with Josh Kell of Esports Integration Horizon AVL. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Wait. I'm doing well, Bubba. How are you? You're doing all right.
I just wish I had the confidence of doing impressions on screen. I do it plenty with my kids and plenty with my students. But yeah, that one, I fear I will just sound like a really bad Sean Connery on accident. Lovely potty.
That's what she said.
Trebek. I'll Trebek.
Sorry.
Okay. So welcome.
We're going to derail this already. Sorry.
Already. We can't help it. It's just how many times we've done a show for rAVe. And
oh my gosh.
This happens every time. Well, man, I'm excited to talk to you today about audio. We're going to talk a little about front of house, back of house, how those things all work together. And really what I really want to get is the scope of esports needs when it comes to AV, but specifically for audio for the players, for the production, for the spectators. So can you walk me through a little bit about the front of house needs when it comes to audio in player sense and even the fans?
Yeah. So, looking at each segment, the front of house needs and the spectator needs obviously vary a little different from what we look at production and on the stage. Obviously, we're summing everything down. We have large sound systems, subwoofers. Depending on the space, it could be point source speakers, it could be line arrays. Once again, it just all depends on how large or small the space is itself. And our engineers take a careful time looking at each space and making sure that the speakers match the space. We don't want them to be overkill, too big. That will distract the players, but we want the involvement with the spectators to be engaging. And so having that dynamic in sound, making sure that they're hearing the casters properly, making sure that they're hearing the game in-game audio, and then that is being mixed and mastered for the front of house. It's a separate system than production. It's its own console. Really, that's at the highest level of that in-venue experience. And so we want to make sure that they're not listening to players when they don't need to be listening to players. What's cool, as you continue to expand on the system itself, we've actually started listening to players when there's like a great play or something that's happening. And that's hard to pinpoint sometimes in the game, depending on the game. League of Legends is a little easier because you're building up to that hype at the end, because that's really where it all starts to really get exciting. Like, it's a slow burn in the beginning with League. But then like communication with like Rocket League is constant all the time. And so you want to like listen into players if there is like a battle or something that's happening. Overwatch and Valorant sort of lend to those same exact elements, that team communication, which adds a level of dynamic that a lot of venues don't consider bringing into that venue, because the spectators are watching these players, but them communicating, we actually have an opportunity to do that like traditional sports wouldn't have. When you're watching a court or a football game or whatever, you got the big parabolic mics and stuff, and you could kind of hone in and listen to the huddle a little bit. But that's every now and then. You have with this sort of setup, you actually have the capability of doing that. So
what's the hard part about the player not hearing the caster and the gameplay with their headphones, with their mix at the table and like a real high level production down to grassroots? Like, what kind of is there lag time for the in-house, but then that draws to an effect where somebody gets up and screams because they got a goal, and then the audience sees it 10 seconds later? Like, how do you get that mix right for the players and the fans?
That is one of the most challenging aspects, especially if you're dealing with games that do have a long, lengthy delay. League of Legends being one of them, right? Like, you have that long minute plus thing in time, and there's all sort of reasons why they do that. But when you're working with games that don't have that, we try to minimize the delay as much as possible, because you want that fan interaction, because that feeds the player, and it feeds the team, and we want them to feel that. But it doesn't. We don't want it distracting, and we don't want the casting to be so loud that the player is getting tip-offs, which has been a problem with systems that aren't developed right, and they don't have then other hardware in place to combat those elements. And so there is a balance with making sure that the spectator's engaged, it's loud, it's exciting, but then it's shielded away enough from the player that the competitors don't have an advantage or disadvantage. Right? It is a balance. That could be a little tricky. Separation. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm totally thinking about these big venues. I mean, I was in Texas when I was with the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup. When I was in Riyadh this last month, I'm trying to process how well they're being blocked out, because the stadium is so loud.
Yeah.
And there's casters commentating everything. And then you hear shots or whatever, and you hear a little bit of movement on the grass, like in PUBG or whatever, on gameplay, but you're hearing them, he doesn't know he's there. Like, gosh.
Right.
Maybe it's there was a ton of referees at the Esports World Cup, so maybe there was a lot to do with managing noise cancellation, and they probably had in-ear monitors and heads. I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering if that's happening.
Oh yeah. So in a lot of our builds, especially at a collegiate level, some at a high school level, but definitely at a collegiate and a pro level, we are putting in the Glen Sound GTMs. So it's specifically designed for esports that helps with all of these issues. It helps with noise cancellation. So there's two sets of headphone jacks. One is in ears, and then you put over ear, and then you put white noise into that. So then that helps block a significant amount of the sound. And then the other aspect that the GTM solve is if you are taking the signal from each PC out HDMI and convert it to SDI, that goes back to broadcast, the operating system will select one sound output. And then there's other things that you could put in there that will allow for audio to be heard in headphones, and that gets kind of clunky. So the GTM solves that as well, where it's USB into the PC. That is now your sound device. I see. So you then tell the game and the operating system, Windows, to then look to the Glen Sound device for all audio out, not out the HDMI, not out the headphone jack. You're then sending it to that. So that helps with that particular issue. And then
that's a device. That's a device, not software. Or it's
that's both, a device. The GTM is a device. It's a physical device that's on the desktop. There's two versions. Well, there's actually, I should say there's four versions of it. There's two versions, one with SDI that will take the USB and embed the audio over SDI. And then there is a non-SDI version, which then will send it over Dante. Actually, both SDI and non-SDI send it over Dante protocols as well. And then there's buttons on top and dials. So I can control my game volume. I control my mic volume in my ear. So if I want to hear myself, I can turn certain players like to hear. I come from the world of broadcast, so I'm actually listening to myself in my ears. I think it's really weird when I can't hear myself in my headphones.
Wow.
And some people, when they get here in the studio, they're like, oh, I hear myself. I'm like, well, yeah, you got to get used to that, because you want to hear if you're talking over someone. So that's good for communication. So then let's see, the dials, game, myself, and then my teammates. So what's really cool about these GTMs is then I can assign up to 7 groups or 7 teams to these devices. So if you're all assigned to team 1, I can hear all of team 1. So now it's communication between the team players. We're not using Discord, because Discord has a lag, right? Like I could say something and then I've been in arenas where I've said something through Discord, someone left their headphones out, and if I put my headphone, I can hear myself later. It's like, hi. So that lag in communication comes to a disadvantage when you're using like Discord. But with the Glensound GTM, it's milliseconds, if that. Like it's almost instant. So you have very little latency with team communication with those as well. So it's solving multiple things.
Okay. Now, I've just called it a box basically. So you're putting better terms here for those out there who know this stuff in the AV world. But is it more of an esports term, or that's definitely a broadcast type box because it's used for sports and it's used for news and everything else?
Yeah,
so it's a pretty typical system.
Yeah. Minus the USB portion of the GTM box from Glensound is designed specifically for esports. Glensound makes all kinds of intercoms and broadcast gear for communications over Dante.
That's my trying to process because I've just stood behind players and gotten content and walked and talked to them. I've not really just been in those. I not played in a big esports tournament and had that. I just kind of like, oh, they're using really cool stuff. I know how that works. I've seen it plugged in. I can hear it.
Yeah.
But my always trying to piece together is, are they hearing? They're hearing their game audio,
right?
But also from their actual PC, and they're hearing their teammates,
right?
And they're all that then is being sent to production in multiple channels. I mean, there could be.
That's correct.
I mean, it could be 40 channels, maybe if it's audio, or it's maybe camera, and then it's every mic and it's everything. I mean, the game audio is just so many channels going back to the production room.
Yeah, if stereo, if you want to do it in stereo, if you send the game audio in stereo, so that's 2 channels, right?
Yeah.
If you send the mics in stereo, which I don't know why you would do that, but let's just say you do, that's 2 more channels per location. So each station, so you're looking at 4 channels of audio in a 5v5. That's 40 channels of audio that are getting sent back to the console.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot.
Now, I'm messing around at our campus. We have a broadcast studio, and I'm just always perplexed on SDIs, the great things about SDI and the limits of SDI. Can you just explain to me, and maybe those out there who, there's probably plenty of people on there watching this who know SDI and how it works, but in an esports or a production broadcast, the benefits, the pros and the cons maybe of SDI cables.
Yeah. So SDI sort of comes in multiple different flavors based upon bandwidth. So SDI stands for Serial Digital Interface, right? So then there's SDI in its basic form, and that's SD, right? So standard definition. And then there's HG, HD, or 3G, depending on which one you're looking at, which is high definition 1080i or 1080p, which is 3G, SDI. And then it's a coaxial cable that then is sending data down the line. It's not an analog signal. It's serial digital interface. So then you have 6G SDI, which is 4K at 30 frames. And then you have 12G SDI, which is 4K at 60 frames. And then that's just thicker, bigger cable, gauge, right? Yeah. So you've got more bandwidth, so you need something more. And so then there's length limitations. So the biggest thing with SDI is you have a limitation on length based upon the size of the cable.
Right. Because it degrades over distance, correct?
Yes. So if you get a true 12G SDI cable, you could go safely like 300 feet with that cable. You could go a little bit more if you really want to push it, but we safely say no more than 300 feet. So that's a limitation within SDI. The pro to it is it's robust, and it is. I mean, you could just trust it. It's a hard connection. It's either there or it's not. Like, there's nothing in between. I mean, if you have bad connectors, cable's been pulled and stretched and someone yanked on it, you could have a faulty connector. But all in all, it is a very reliable connector, and that's why broadcast has used it for so long.
I thought I'm a little confused. I thought there was a limited amount of maybe outputs and inputs. Can you transmit multiple things, or it is a singular
it's
input
singular.
output?
Yeah, no, it's
Okay,
it's
that's
singular.
where I thought the con was.
That's correct. So
Yeah.
it's a 1-for-1 element, except for
Yeah.
audio. Audio has the
Oh,
capability over SDI to send 16 channels over that that line.
see. Okay, I'm looking at the back of like different black metal, like at church. I remember seeing from the stage, and literally it probably was 300 feet from the stage up to the crow's nest, and like, oh yeah, we're running the SDI. We got to run it again, and we got to put a new one in, and this process. And I really thought they might be running 12 or 15, but it was one, I think, for all the different. Well, I mean, there might have been two, but just because there's so many instruments on a stage.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, one per device.
Okay.
One device per cable, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
every
it's
camera, every computer, one cable for each one of those. So on a stage, 5v5, right? 10 for the PCs, 10 for the cameras. And then if you're doing the Glen sound with the SDI version, you got 10 of those. So that's, that's, what is that? 10, 20, 30. 30 lines of SDI that are all running around.
And that Glen is doing USB just between the box and the computer, and then the SDI is going back to production.
Yeah, so the box is doing some magicalness inside there, and then it's taking the USB and then it's embedding it into the Dante protocol and into the SDI protocol simultaneously. So then you're sending two redundant feeds of audio, one down the Dante line, so on the IT side, on the IP side, right? And then you're sending audio down the SDI side, and then that is picked up with the switcher or MADI, or or converted to MADI, or all that kind of stuff.
So now when we're talking about this box, this Glen box, this machine, there's also a dial, you say, that is good in higher production events and hopefully in grassroots events, is the idea of hearing maybe the producer or a game director or a stage director in some fashion. So now we're transitioning from all the stuff that's happening on stage. We did fan stage. Now we're pushing to the broadcast room. What's that intermediary? You're saying that there is also maybe another dial.
Yeah. So there's the team dial, but then there is a production injection or a referee injection. Actually, there's also a coach mode into it as well. So these boxes have a lot, right? So a coach, well, depending on the rules of the game, you would assign one of these boxes to the coach. And if the coach is allowed to talk in between rounds or whatever the rule sets are, then a ref can then allow in the software for that coach to now communicate to their team and only to their team. A ref, in the ref mode, I can listen to all teams and everyone, so I can see if they're cheating, etc. Yeah. And I can actually talk to all the players and say, we need to stop the round, there's something wrong. And that then leads to the production side where a ref would be in some of these cases. Like, there are refs on stage, but there are also refs in the production room that are watching, that global command view of everybody's computer and everyone's gameplay to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then there's a ref in there, and production can then talk to the teams. So in the world of production and signal and the flow of an event, that is really handy, because I can say, all right, everyone, you need to jump into the lobby. And then I can see in my multi-view window in production who's getting in the lobby. Player 3, you're still not in the lobby. Jump into the lobby. Like, you need to sign up. Let's go. Like, we got to get on with the game. So that's really nice, because now you don't need a runner that is going to the stage. And with intercoms, I mean, there in most cases, if we have designed the system properly, there is intercom for like technical directors or some sort of stage director that has that same production communication, and then they're like a backup, like, hey, can you tell this player to get in, because we told him 3 times already.
So now you're kind of crossing over again to what I was also going to ask, was the host and the analysts and the casters who may be a different stage or a different room, or right next to the players. It just depends on the facility, but yeah, they are having their communication with the production, with the producers.
Yes.
But yeah, they may even ask for a feed to listen in, as an analyst wants to listen in to certain players or whatever. There's so many things, and plus they would have a talkback box or a voice box to communicate if they're a technical director or if they're a camera operator. There's so many other audios. We're not even in the back room yet, and we're still talking about the casters, the analysts, and all the crew in front of house. So what are some more of those?
So some of those boxes, actually we use a similar box minus the USB from Glen Sound that is like, it's called a Minferno, and that unit is for casters specifically, so the casters can hear each other, and then they have like these little talkback buttons so that they can just like directly talk to them and not to production or not on stream, right? So they can, and there's like cough buttons, so if they're coughing, they can just quickly press that cough button. But those boxes are also tied back to production. So production's like, hey, we're on in 3, 2, 1, or we need to go to commercial, or extend it a little bit more. We need you to stall for 2 minutes. Once again, that level of communication is what makes or breaks any level of online production, any streaming, any broadcast. If you can't communicate to your analysts, your casters, and if they can't communicate with each other, it's surprisingly difficult to actually have a great stream. I don't think I've ever seen a stream that's gone well when you can't do that,
I totally get it. Production wise, it's funny just working within shoestring budgets. I remember at church we started using Discord with headphones to communicate, and because our talkback boxes were all kind of trash and old, and so we started using Discord, and that seemed like a good option until the Wi-Fi just was trash. Like, service,
right. So then, right now you're solely relied on Wi-Fi, right? And and that's also a consideration you need to think through, like which protocols am I using? Dante doesn't like Wi-Fi, so you can there. Well, we'll just say it's not best practice. We'll just say it that way. It likes a hardwired connection, and there's a reason why, because when you have everything hardwired, the chance of something interfering becomes less and less, right? You're eliminating those failure points, and so that's why we try to either hardwire as much of the communications as possible. We do use wireless comms for like runners, and then that's like a whole dedicated wireless system that not necessarily using like your networking Wi-Fi, but uses some level of access point that's dedicated to that function.
Yeah, you're so right. The amount of communication needed. I mean, just calling out camera shots to 5 different camera operators to get the energy from a concert to esports broadcast, and running marshals on the stage to get those shots, and just all the communication, so that the camera's not being used, so I can walk with my camera now and go find a new shot, and I know I'm not whether I got my red or my green light on.
Right.
So communication definitely is great. I noticed something in our studio on campus here. We were trying to find a way to not all be yelling at each other in a small room about broadcast. So like some guy even created some online talkback box type platform that basically used to be with a stream deck. And so I don't know what it is. I'll look into it, but it just seemed like a great way to do something on a shoestring budget. Those things cost a lot.
They do.
The talkback boxes.
And Discord is still an option. Like I don't want to say rule it out as a form of communication. You certainly can do it. It's just how critical is that path for you at the end of the day. If you're at the highest level competition, you shouldn't be considering it. If you are on a limited budget, then absolutely consider it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you have to look at every situation and say, well, what are you doing in this situation? If you're going to be having championship matches, that are in there that are requiring, like, this is it. These are the last two. They've made it to the finals. This is the biggest event that's going to be in the league. You probably should look at something a little bit more robust than just like, hey, Discord, right? Like, it's once again, nothing wrong with Discord. I use it all the time. And I even see teams still utilize it effectively for a communication tool. And I don't think anything's wrong with it, but it's only as strong as its weakest link.
Right.
Wi-Fi goes down, cell towers go down, things happen, it's done, right? But if your internal network and stuff is then hardwired internally and it's on backup systems and everything, it's still going to operate. It's still going to function.
Which all this matters in the click of a mouse. All this matters,
right?
To the win or a loss, a headshot. It matters. So we've explored the front of house pretty much, and I love how the transferableness of this works with churches, works with award shows, works with concerts, works with stadiums, with sports, with and LAN events that we're talking about. So I love the transferability of it all when AV integrators are out there trying to decide how they need to step up something different, which I don't know. Would you say that there's maybe 20% more things you have to think about, or 50% more things you have to think about compared from a concert to esports? I mean, or is it just a different cable, a different use of the cable front of house specifically?
I mean, I probably say between 40 to 50% is going to be different than what you're looking at traditional, because you're dealing with so many more inputs than you would if you're looking at a live venue sort of thing. Because you're trying to time things where you're listening to players, you're watching their gameplay, and if you're switching from screen to screen, that audio needs to follow that video. There's all of these other mechanisms that kind of come into play on the back end production side of things that really need to take into consideration how that works out, because it quickly can become disconnected by systems, because the systems by default and this hardware by default is not meant to work with each other, because they're meant to stand alone as this sound console is a sound console, right? And that's what it's meant to be. And it's not meant to track 20 different gaming and observer PCs and all these other things and know which one you're on. Now, there's some programming and integration and back-end stuff that we do that make that happen seamlessly so that the user has that seamless experience. And that's where that next level of integration comes into play. Otherwise, you're doing a lot of button pressing. And so it's
so
it gets to a lot.
So before we get to the back of the house, is there a best practice, or is it just based on the tech person installing from SDI to over IP? To when I look at server rooms in facilities and I see these stacks of racks of everything, and I'm seeing lots of Cat 7, 8 cables going in and out, not just for internet, but for operating lights and everything else.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, how much of sound is then being used? Is this AV over IP, or what's happening if it's not SDI? Is there a better practice? Is there a better choice, or is it just depending on the organization?
Yeah, so I mean, Dante for us is almost exclusively what we've been leaning towards as far as an audio protocol, and we always use it. Well, I would actually say from an audio perspective, Dante over SDI. So we actually have transitioned because the Glen Sound devices actually have Dante, and a lot of these like little Dante devices that exist out there, you can just grab them and do like Dante to analog or analog to Dante in these little boxes, right? It is allowed for really quick connections utilizing PC's hardware in these scenarios to quickly get audio to and from a location. And so if you look at the back of a lot of the consoles that we've done, whether in production or the front of house, you're going to see very few XLR connections or quarter inch, tip ring sleeve.
Right.
You're going to see a network cable, and then, or maybe two, right? One for LAN for controlling the unit, and then one that is for a Dante. Well, maybe even 2 in there where you have a primary and a secondary for redundancy. And so that for us has become a very common workflow, not just in esports, but I mean, we just did an auditorium for high school. The amplifiers are digital, and they have Dante or AS67 inputs. Okay. The DSP, the processor, the digital signal processor that's running the whole thing, over Dante. The digital console has 6 XLR connected. That's for the choir mics. Okay, and everything else, the wireless mics, all Dante. Out of the console, out of Dante. Like, it's just network cables.
Wow.
Like, that's what it's really come to. And so, like, standard practice with a lot of these things is not just, just start adopting networking and Dante everywhere you go. It's also understanding IT, because one of the things that we find, and we've adopted this pretty early, is having a network engineer on staff here as an integrator. Because you're dealing with all these network protocols that you kind of understand as an AV integrator how this works, but not fully. And then when you get into these environments where you have all of this data that's moving all over the place, make sure you're setting your VLANs correctly. Make sure that multicasting or unicast, whichever way you're going to go with it, most likely multicast, that's all set up properly. Because then there's other things that are going to be living on your network as well. You mentioned lights and video and all of these other protocols that technically could exist on the same network. And so they all take up packets. They all take up data. And if you don't manage it correctly, then something isn't going to get priority. And that means something's going to drop a packet. And if you don't set it up properly with your audio, you're going to drop audio packets, and it's going to go out all the time.
I see.
So.
And is there less degrading of signal with network cable over SDI as well? Or can you only get so far with a network cable?
Well, yes, same thing. Network. I mean, unless it's fiber. But,
right.
Still, when it comes to copper, specifically copper, and SDI is copper, right? Copper has an actual bandwidth limitation at the end of the day. Without getting into the science of how copper and twisted pairs and all this stuff works.
Sure.
But the general rule of thumb is, you've got it, with a category cable, whether Cat 6, Cat 6A, Cat 7, wherever you're going with your category cable, there is a distance limitation ultimately. Now, unlike SDI, with a network cable, you can send multiple video, multiple audio signals down that same path.
Right.
It's just there's a physical limitation that happens based upon what the jack on either side can handle. Like how big of an opening can you get down the pipe, right? You could certainly hook a fire hose up to your house, but the rest of the pipes in the house are only 3/4 inch in diameter. So you're not going to get all that water in. It's still going to limit it, right? So that you have to understand bandwidth and limitations of the NIC cards and what they can do. Is it 1 gig? Is it 2.5? Is it 5 gig? Is it 10? Is it 25, 40, 100 gig? Like that's when it starts to get into fiber and stuff. But there's limitations on the ports.
Is fiber being done more and more, or is it still just staying with network cables? Or it depends on distance, or
it really depends, right? So in some of our hybrid broadcast stuff, we are utilizing fiber, and then we're utilizing it to then break out into SDI, into audio breakouts. So you're sending one fiber line, 2-3 miles, however long it goes, whether it's single mode or multi-mode, you can go X amount of distance based upon. Then there's a whole science behind glass and fiber and all that happens inside that. How far you can go, but you can go miles. You can go miles without loss, and you have a lot of data packets. But we're utilizing that in some of these environments as well, where we're converting SDI to a protocol like ST2110, that's a SMPTE standard. So SMPTE is for the standard for motion picture engineering, etc.
Okay.
So the SMPTE so SDI is actually a SMPTE standard, right? and ST2110 is the IP version of that. And so we're utilizing fiber, and we have like these breakout boxes that have SDI, then that converts it to fiber, and then I can run it a long distance across to some other, like a production truck or somewhere else. And that's carrying audio and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, cables are, network cables are still utilized in a lot of our installations. But, that's from like, you're going from device over copper, if you will.
Okay.
Then into switch, network switch, fiber out to other network switch in another production room somewhere across the campus, and then network cables into that. So it's kind of like a breakout box. So in, out, sort of thing.
Okay. Speaking of super nerdy things, have you read the book Artemis by Andy Weir? Same guy who wrote The Martian, the movie.
No, I have not.
Okay.
So you're telling me I have to read it?
Yeah, it's really good. I've read a couple times. Well, I've read the audiobook. An audiobook's done by Rosario Dawson, so it just sounds really good when she's reading it. But this book, Artemis, they at the end. Actually, I don't want to see. Well, who knows if you read it. Basically, on the moon, they create a new fiber optic, and it's made of like zero lag, like glass or something.
Really?
From the carbon. And it just always excites me to see, like, what if that's like something we actually do on the moon, and that's how we communicate, zero lag, zero ping, anything from around the world or to the moon and back.
That would be awesome.
But I don't know. It's like I have no idea. It's a glass. I'm sitting here trying to Google Artemis optical something, and I can't find it because.
But were they
not
sending
a big deal
the
to me.
Fiber back to Earth in?
Not yet. They basically
all I see is like the moon tether with like one line, and the moon's going around like a lasso around the Earth. Sorry,
you never know. I mean, what was the movie with Brad Pitt where he like doesn't have a heartbeat? He doesn't get stressed out, and he goes and finds his dad on like around Saturn's rings or something on a moon, and it's Tommy Lee Jones. Anyways, they have like a big tower that goes from the Earth to the moon or something. So or a space station. Hey, we're almost there. Esports is pushing the boundaries, and
that's right. So, we're going to be on the moon soon.
Esports on the moon. It's gonna be great. So
you gotta love it. I mean,
it's gonna be great. So let's finish with the back of the house then. Then all this stuff. So we gone front of the house.
Yeah.
To go back of house. I'm wondering if there is some sort of deeper connection that is needed, because I think we covered a lot. But to be honest, what's happening audio wise differently from the back of the house?
So we see this similar train of thought that is not applied in churches, houses of worship, etc., where one console rules them all, and it shouldn't be so, where you want two consoles, because what someone is hearing on the stream is very different than what the spectators are hearing in venue. And so when you're mixing for an online event in a stream, it's always important to have another console with a whole different set of rules that exist out there, and that it has an opportunity to mix separately for stream. So I'm getting all those same feeds that the front of house person has, but the way I mix it is going to be very different, because I'm listening in an environment that's isolated, that has studio monitors or studio isolation headphones, and I am mixing for the user that they may have headphones on or are watching through their phone. And so that has to be mixed very differently. And a lot of people don't understand that. And it's a different set of rules too. Compression changes a little bit. So compression on the channels need to change.
Yeah.
You want it to be a little bit more even across the board. I mean, well, that's my personal style. And that's the other thing. Every engineer has a little bit of a different style of mixing than the next person. So, but all in all, that audio engineer that is mixing for the stream should have an understanding of mixing live sound in more of a recording studio mindset, more of a mastering and listening to things, right? Because they're picking up on nuances and things that that people in venue are not hearing. And so it's just a little bit of a different art form than just running front of house.
Yeah, do you feel like there's a best practice of an audio booth, 50 yards back at a venue, or maybe in its own room? Because I know the audio techs I've worked with who were walking around with their iPad and they're moving dials and they're going like, and I do that, but I usually like, can you turn up here? No, I don't have an iPad, but they're messing with things depending on what part of the room they're in, just for the audience, which I think is really cool. Is there a best practice for concerts or esports to be back of the house or back of the room, or compared to off stage, or did you need both, or you need mobile people?
So
what's best?
So this all kinds of goes back to like sound theory and audio theory. And there's a lot of people that make a lot of different there's a lot of opinions of where a front of house position should be, right?
Sure.
Should you roam? Should you be stationary? Should you be in the back? Should you be in the middle? Should you be right in line in the sweetest spot, and everyone else gets, subpar from there, right? And then, it really comes down to, when you're looking at front of house, if you do a well-designed system, once again, whether line arrays or distributed or single point source, whatever that is, at least some level of modeling should be done for the room or for the venue. How do these speakers best behave? And that's normally my first start for best practice. Is the sound should be similar no matter where you sit if you design a sound system right. So if I'm sitting in the front row or all the way in the back or in the middle or to the left or to the right, it should be a similar experience. Now, I understand that there are reflections and there are things in rooms that come into play that will alter that. And we don't live in a vacuum, so I know it's never perfect. But you can get it really close. And so step one is make sure it's modeled right in the room, that you have the right speakers to do the right the right tool for the job. You don't just want to put anything in somewhere because it looks cool and it might not function as the right thing at the end of the day. So that's like number one, is normally what I tell my audio engineering team. Like, that's where we start. Let's start with modeling and see how it behaves and see how, do we need acoustical treatment? Do we need these things? And that's what's great about modeling, is you can do that. And then you could predict some level of understanding of how the room's going to behave based upon the materials that you put into the software. And then you could say, we actually need a bass trap here and we need some acoustic paneling here. And that will help out with evening out the sound across the room. So in venue, front of house position, I don't have any place particular. I want to be in the best place, obviously, because I want to hear everything if I'm mixing sound. But if it's well designed, it shouldn't really matter too much if I'm like near the front or all the way in the back. But on a production value for stream, 100% isolated from everything else. You should not be influenced by what you're hearing in the venue, because he or she are mixing for that venue specific and the nuances in the venue, reflections, absorption, diffusion, all of that stuff. So that individual is mixing for that. So you can't grab that feed and then say, oh, we'll just use that. And it sometimes just sounds horrible on stream when you do it that way. Most of the time.
Okay. That's the question I want to lead to finish up here, is obviously there's observers who are then communicating with the production that are coordinating shots and whatnot for the choice of which angle, for which third-person view or first-person view or overhead view are we getting for gameplay. But then you also have this what works in the room, which I think there's way more nuance for an esports event over maybe a concert, but I could be diminishing a concert, but there's a lot on both. But I think how you operate that versus what's heard from a voice and a caster compared to that little bit of gameplay, compared to the hearing of the guitar and the singer, there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
But my wonder here is moving to the finalies in the back of the house is those observers and how they communicate in that production with maybe a Glen sound or a box of some sort, or it's just they're on the comms maybe. And then the last thing to touch on is how to really get the stream to sound good. So talk to me about the observers, and are they operating the same as the casters and the tech as well?
They are. Typically, we put the observers on their own sort of communication channel. And the TD, the technical director, normally is tuned into them as well. So the TD is kind of tuned into everyone, and we normally separate out the channels because we don't want the casters to hear the observers, because that would be really distracting for the casters. Really, the only person that should be talking to the casters would be the technical director. Hey, we need to go to commercial or something like that, right? Stall. We need to stall.
And so that's a technical director. How would you describe when describing these roles, and you're talking to students or you're talking to new people in the esports space?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just said observers, by the way. So observers, if you don't know, they're the ones who find the camera shots, basically.
They're virtual camera
in
operators.
A game. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know that, audience, that's what they are. But I think technical director versus a producer versus a director versus an executive producer, I'm trying to teach my students right now the differences of those, and they're kind of convoluting a little bit. And I think a lot of studios, and here's my belief, a lot of broadcast organizations or entities will kind of use those terms a little differently. Especially film will use executive producer different from maybe a broadcast studio.
Yeah.
And so when you say technical director, are you talking not how to operate the show, and then a producer is running the show and calling the shots? How would you describe maybe some of those roles?
Yeah, so typically the TD is sitting there and saying, ready camera 1, take camera 1, ready camera 2, zoom out camera 2, take camera 2, ready graphics, lower thirds.
Yeah.
Like that's the one calling the shots. The producer, and a lot of times I've come in and I'm talking, I will act as the producer, and I sit behind the technical director. So I'm going to tell the technical director, hey, this is where we're going to go. Why don't you take some of these type of shots? Because I'm producing this entire environment. Hey, we need more FaceTime for our sponsor. Can you give us more FaceTime to sponsor? Like I'm producing that level. An executive producer is just telling me even more of those high level things that they may want to see. And sometimes those individuals aren't necessarily in the booth all the time with us. I mean, sometimes they are. But like from a producer perspective, I'm in communication with the director. I'm letting the director call the shots because they're seeing they've got the brush out and they're painting the picture. I'm just bringing over new colors for them to pick from.
Okay.
Time. Like, hey, why don't you paint with some pastels now? Yeah. And then they're like, okay, well, I could see how I can do that. And then they start working with those different colors, and working that into the entire canvas of what they're painting. So I try not to interject myself too much because they've gone through run of show. They've already walked through things with their entire team. You know, they've talked to graphics, how it's going to work. They're going to talk to audio. They're going to talk to the switcher operator. They've made all these calls. They've kind of gone through how the show is going to go. So obviously in sports, you can never predict how the show is going to go. So they're watching the multi-view and they're watching the 40 some inputs that they have to decide where they're going to put content from, replays, the whole thing. And then they're the ones that are normally calling the show. That's how I like to run. I've seen producers run it a little bit more, but I take a little bit more of a backseat to it.
Well, it's just the fun debate I'm having with my students who then will go out to other events, and then those terms may be swapped because someone worked in sports, someone worked in film. Yep. Because a producer on a film could be definitely more of could be producing it. I mean, it just there's so many different ways to look at it, and
sometimes they're the man behind the
best
curtain,
practice,
right? Yeah. At a film level, they're kind of the man behind the curtain ish, right? They're not as like the director is calling the shots in most everywhere on set for film. That he's the king. And then they come back to the producer, and the producer is saying, hey, this is what we want. Okay, we want to kind of see it.
Well, I think that's the confusion stuff. I'm producing the shot, so I'm producing the call outs is sometimes that gets used. I hear in different studios, that's where the confusion lies sometimes.
Typically, I let the TD do their job because they are technically directing, and they've got a thing in their head, and I don't want to mess that up. And then when there's a little lull, I'll say, hey, more of this. Like, we need more of this stuff. Yeah. And then he'll go back, and we just did this at Syracuse University, where where the PEC kickoff just happened, and so Sean Kelly is TDing the whole thing, and he's like, I said, how do you want me to help? Like, I'll jump on console. What do you want me to do? And he's like, can you be my producer? And I'm like, absolutely. I don't have a problem. He was just, be that 30,000 foot view, and I might be missing something because I'm in the weeds. If you could just be that for me. And I said, sure, no problem. And so I did. I was like, hey, this is going a little too long, or hey, make sure we bring up those graphics, and we're going to want to go to this. And then, that's kind of how I view it from terms of a position. Okay.
And this was Syracuse with Joey?
Yep.
Or this was something
with Joey.
Yeah. That's the facility. So I'm looking here online, inside the facility there.
The Shine student.
I think, that's right. I remember you showing me this. Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, so now that we're wrapping up, what are the big mistakes that integrators need to make sure they teach people when they hand over the keys to a facility or hand over keys to a broadcast studio to make sure they get right on the stream? Because the live stream is so crazy to operate from in your own room at home, where we all mess up the audio. We all mess up the audio.
Audio
is
always a problem.
As my mic's not working. What chat? The chat. My mic's not working. And to a live broadcast where things are just missing. And how do we make the stream great for audio?
Yeah. Making streams great again. So, sorry. So with the way that I would normally approach this is, making sure that you understand the way that video games and the competitors start there first, and understand their expectations of what they want to hear, and then how your signal flow is working to then capture that and bring that back. And so that's where I normally start. If you can't grasp that and understand that, then you're going to have all kinds of audio problems from there, because you're not going to get the audio in correctly, and then you're going to have a shot where the audio isn't aligned to what you're listening to, and it just becomes a pretty big cluster. But the next element is have multiple consoles in the space. They don't have to be elaborate. They don't have to be big. You don't need to be spending, $40, $50, $100,000 on a console. If you have that separation of audio where your stream can be done a little bit mixed, a little bit differently than what you're hearing in the house, that is going to set you worlds apart from everything else. And try not to rely on PC software to do the things. Like when you're bringing stuff into, if you're trying to do a one-man show with OBS, that's great and all, but there's always problems that happen with that. And that doesn't lend to the best streaming experience. And if you have digital consoles, you're saving presets on top of it. So once you get it right and you test it and you get everything at the right volume and the right output, it's not distorted, you're hearing everything properly, it's mixed well, you save the thing, and then you just recall the scene again. So that gives consistency on your stream. And that I would definitely say is one of the biggest things I don't see, is enough consistency from stream to stream to stream. It's, the sound card reset, and we got to start all over again and do this. It can just become a nightmare over time. So, consistency, number one. Definitely look at digital consoles and really understand how PCs and gaming works and what the gamer is looking for and what you're trying to accomplish, and that you're not interrupting what they need but you're getting everything that you require for the stream itself.
Wow. Well, man, this has been super duper educational for me as someone who just plugs in stuff and turns knobs to make sure I can hear it. And then there's so many extra pieces involved. And I think it's super duper helpful for those out there as integrators who are watching through the rAVe Esports show and through rAVe Pubs, and who you and I get to work with and talk about esports all the time, and maybe help them see the extra stuff that's needed for esports. And
Yeah.
tell me to wrap up here, how can people find out more about what you do, and how maybe you could partner with any of these integrators or schools or universities or institutions on providing your services?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, so esportsintegration.com, our website. horizonavl.com, you certainly can get in touch with our parent company, but if you're looking for something esports specific, it would be better just to go to that contact page. So esportsintegration.com. You can fill out the contact page, or just email us at info@esportsintegration.com. If you're looking for more in-depth training or anything like that, we have some really exciting things that are happening with our platform that we've developed, where we have some of these like audio classes, which for integrators, you might not need it. And you may, it depends. We kind of go over like audio profiles and how to understand setting up audio for the first time, and running through like audio principles. What is compression? What is gain? So platform one, and that's .gg. So it's platform one.gg. And you could look at some of the courses there, but we have courses for your clients. So we will work with you guys. Even though we are an integrator, esports integration is there to help with the process of building these venues out properly. And we can help with drawings, we can help with design, we can help with procuring equipment. If you don't have access to some of this stuff, we have a lot of resources at the end of the day that we can, and we've worked with quite a few integrators to date in getting them across the finish line and understanding, because they may have a client, they said yes, and now there's like all these nuances and just a misunderstanding of esports, but we're here to help ultimately.
Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to hang and obviously talk about World of Warcraft before we hit record, and as we always do, and then we never wind up playing. So we're obviously going to say we're going to play, and then whatever, it's going to happen. Obviously, it's 10 p.m. here in London, and then is it, 3 for you or 4? Or?
It's 5. Is it 5?
5?
Yeah,
okay,
it's 5. Yeah, so 5 hours behind. Yeah.
Yep. I'll just stay up later. I'll get up earlier.
I can get up early. Well, that'd be really early for me. I mean, I could get up at 5 if you want to play at 10. It's up to you.
Maybe. I'll have to switch over. I'm happy to roll a new alliance character. Yes, always.
I don't mind rolling a horde. I know that that's where you sowed your oats there, but
I have plenty of alliance characters. Like I have literally played every type of character and race and
I think
either side of the alliance.
Yeah, I haven't done some of the new classes. Anyway, we could go on for hours for that.
Same.
Sorry, derailed again.
Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, and we'll chat next time, brother.
Yeah, sounds good.